Hello Targar friends. Hey everybody, it's Jason Blah here and it's time for another orc mode workout, and today is going to be dynamic effort. This is going to be an absurdly complex topic. It's pretty simple when you watch it in action. It's another thing completely to understand picking numbers and things like compensatory acceleration. For those curious, today it's triples with approximately 80%. Now, when we start looking at muscle fiber recruitment, when you look at data on normal tempo reps, 80%, you're only going to get a training effect from the very last rep. But that's with normal tempos. When you go back and you look at things like the data on mind-muscle connection versus compensatory acceleration, and that's what I'm doing here. I'm lifting the weight as fast as I possibly can. Here's the difference. We're using approximately a 7 rep max, right? So in other words, really only your last rep on a triple under normal circumstances, like I said, would be recruiting upper threshold fibers. That's the only one that's getting you a real training effect for hypertrophy. Yet guys who do dynamic effort work correctly, whether we're doing it straight raw or with bands or chains, and yes, I will do some band dynamic work later. If you guys look, you can actually see my band pegs over there against the wall. I actually have band pegs. I actually have a couple sets of bands. You guys recall, people who are OG followers of my channels, and I know channels, because this is my second fitness channel. I closed my original one. I used to do speed bench. I used to do speed squats, like speed boxes, speed deadlifts, all with bands, right? I used to do those things. But that's speed work. That's where I differ from some of the people promoting it for other stuff. But a lot of raw lifters actually successfully do this stuff without accommodating resistance. And I'm not saying band work can't be useful, because band work can be useful for raw lifters for speed work like this, dynamic effort work. But let's go back to the point. We're looking at compensatory acceleration. So in other words, what you are doing, we're squeezing the bar as hard as we can and we're exploding as hard as we can. Now, if you're working with around a 7 rep max, what happens on the first few reps normally? You leave energy in reserve. That's the way a lot of bodybuilders train who do a lot of rep work. They leave reps in reserve. They don't explode as hard as they can on the first few reps on a higher rep set. If you do that way and you just try to lift it at a normal tempo, this sort of training is not going to work for you. It is not going to work. You have to explode. That means treating your first rep like you would a 1 rep max. You lift as hard as you can. You squeeze the bar as hard as you can. You get as tight as you can and you explode. Again, normally when we're working with something like 80% or even 75%, people tend to leave energy in reserve on the first reps. And therefore, because they haven't accumulated any fatigue yet, they use fatigue to start recruiting upper threshold fibers. But you go back and look at the data on compensatory acceleration, it gives much higher muscle fiber recruitment when you try to actively explode the weight. It beats the mind-muscle connection, and it will do it in every single muscle used. So that's what we're doing. And done correctly, when you start realizing you're doing pretty high volumes of low reps, like I'm doing 8 sets of 3 on the close grip bench. I'm going to do 8 sets of 3 on the press, and then 8 sets of 3 on the barbell row. All done as explosively as I can lift the weight. Now, I need to get a little bit faster, which is why I'm incorporating this work again. I've done a lot of higher rep stuff lately, at least high rep for me, right? So we've lost speed. Now we're going to come back and turn some of that muscle I've gained into speed, turn it into power. We're going to turn it into maximum strength with the max effort days and continue to use this for my main hypertrophy. The max effort days are going to be there to build maximum strength. These days count as your volume days because, again, you go back and look at the number of reps and sets. What are we doing? If we're using compensatory acceleration, we are getting 24 quality reps out of 8x3. That's 24 quality reps. All right. If we explode as hard as we can on every rep, if we take a lazy rep in there, we don't get it until we'll only get it on the final rep of the set, because fatigue is accumulated. Now, by that same token, this is done a lot faster than you guys think. This actual workout probably only took me an hour, a little over an hour. Why? We don't need the longer breaks. And I know that sounds contradictory, but that's a very nuanced topic. Why do we need longer breaks to generate maximum muscle size normally? because if you take less than 3 minutes, it reduces the weight you can use for the number of reps you can use. We're not worried about that here. We're getting an accumulation of fatigue over the course of the session. We only need 60 to 90 seconds, and I take about 90 seconds between these. We only need that for the nervous system to recover, because what are we trying to do here? We're not trying to get muscular recovery between sets, because we're not doing limit sets, right? There's nothing slow. There's no grinders. There's no rep in here that looks like it's within 1 rep of failure, does it? Because it's not. We're working with approximately a 7 rep max for a bunch of triples. But if we can have the nervous system recovered enough, and what do we know about the nervous system? Peripheral nervous system will usually only let you generate maximum force around 3 times, and then it will not do it again for at least 60 seconds. That's important for those of you who are going to be in contact sports, by the way. You might want to understand these things. There's a reason you can't do 4 or 5 really hard maximum force jabs in a row or kicks. You're going to start losing power. So this is all about bursts of power and maximizing explosiveness, right? Maximizing as much force as we can generate and moving the bar as quickly as we can with a moderately heavy weight, right? 80% is moderately heavy. That's still heavier than a lot of bodybuilders would work with, for example, for their textbook hypertrophy training. That's what we're doing here. This is all dynamic. But this accumulates a lot of volume. And when you start combining this with your repetition work, because I am doing smaller exercises, right? I mean, we're doing our heavy days, and then we're going to do these dynamic days, but I'm also throwing in muscles that need a little bit of extra work. Things like the cheek curls, things like these lateral raises. And the laterals are working multiple muscles done correctly. We're accumulating a lot of volume, and then we're getting more volume into those weak points so that they will hypertrophy more. Then what about the GBP work? That's a lot of volume. The general physical preparedness has its own hypertrophy element. So what we're doing with a system of training like this at this point, especially for someone like me who is doing GBP on all my off days and some of my training days, and who does endurance work every day, so I'm doing cardio every day on top of it, we're training a lot of performance elements. You know, and I thought it was interesting. I had couple critiques come in, and people were saying, one person said this is examples of fuck-arounditis. It's like focusing on performance with concurrent periodization with heavy barbell movements, with a couple of very small movements thrown in. Very, very few. I don't think that counts as fuck-arounditis. Specifically not when we're running set programming with concurrent periodization. And we're focused on performance, right? That's the whole point. We're focused on maximum strength. We're focused on maximum force production on big exercises. I don't think that counts as fuck-arounditis. Combined with conditioning work. Now, people could argue, well, that conditioning work's not ideal for gaining muscle. Well, no, of course not. But it's ideal for being more athletic. It's ideal for better energy tone. And here's the other thing. That conditioning work is what allows us to build our work capacity. That's the point that it comes to, because a lot of this sort of training, yes, concurrent periodization like this, when you start doing it for longer periods of time, you can start building enormous amounts of workloads. And if you start trying to build more workload density, let's say all this speed work, all right, these are relatively short breaks. If you want to be able to have all these waste products and metabolites cleared out between the sets so that you can use your nervous system again to generate maximum force, you need to be in good shape. And the general physical preparedness and the cardio is important for your recovery as the training volumes start to go up. Right? This is an athletic form of training. This is athletic training, guys. It really is. And anyone who doesn't understand that doesn't understand this style of training. What we're dealing with here with concurrent periodization like this is the way a lot of coaches even train NFL players, top rugby players. This is sports training. Even though it might be more powerlifting oriented, and then we do have a small physique element because I'm working on body composition and then now working on a little more delt, a little more bicep. There's a minor physique component, but even then it would still be athletic aesthetics, which is what Omar Issoff talks about, right? This is sports training, guys. We are focused on performance, and the hypertrophy, most of it other than these couple of weak point exercises, the hypertrophy is there to make us stronger. We are trying to maximize strength for every unit of muscle growth that we get. And that's the point. And I'll show you guys more. What I'm going to end up doing more and more as I rotate through some of the dynamic effort exercises. Some of it's going to match up with my max effort exercises, whereas in some weeks, the week before we do a max effort lift, we will do the dynamic effort sometimes on that exact variation so that we get more practice in, we get more first reps, so that we practice the exercise, the setup, before we hit the max effort 3 to 4 days later. It'll actually be 4 days later, so that we're getting practice in, so that we're preparing for that max effort exercise. And we're hypertrophying the muscles involved directly, so that we can then hit that lift and then generate maximum strength, and then back and forth between the two. So hopefully that makes a lot of sense. But now back to this point, yes, this is the heaviest kettlebell I have. So that's why I'm now up to sets of 12, 3 sets of 12 on it. And they are challenging. They are challenging because I am bringing it up relatively high. And you guys need to notice my thumb is up. I'm bent over a little bit to make sure I get a little bit of rear delt in there. And I'm bracing and I'm breathing on each one so that it turns into an oblique and a core exercise. But the thumb is up for a reason. Because bodybuilders are dumbasses. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. The average bodybuilder is a complete moron who will destroy their body. They're not bodybuilders, they're body destroyers. That pinky up crap that they do crushes the glenoid in your shoulder joint. That's why it burns. That's why they feel the burn. This is pure muscular at this point. This will work your side delt, rear delt, traps, obliques. And that's what we're trying to hit. We're just trying to get a little bit more orky. We need big round shoulders if we're going to be orky. And the overhead press handles most of it. And this finishes it off, and maybe some face pulls. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.